Hi guys, best regards from Ingolstadt. I have heard that you entered the Kamel GT Championship this year in the good old GTO car, so I wish you best of luck and a lot of success.
Best greetings to all drivers from the Audi GTO 90 Championship. Good success.
The Temple of Speed, but the necessity of safety has required the addition of multiple chicanes in order to slow the cars down. The beauty of sim racing is those safety concerns no longer apply. As such, the removal of retifilio becomes a welcome alteration for the drivers. Let's see if the increase in speed increases the excitement on track as we get ready to watch round 1 of the iRacing Kamel GT series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Lindgren. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Monza's triumphs and tragedies span a century of motorsports. To help give our viewers a quick rundown of what this place is about, let's head to our track guide. Welcome to Monza. This track has a major place in racing history, not just for the legendary races, names, and cars that have been here, but because it was the third purpose-built car racing circuit in the world. It's often discussed and reverenced among fans, and especially by Italians who have nicknamed it the Temple of Speed. In fact, the Ferrari fans here are so famous for their devotion that they have been dubbed the Tifosi and never fail to show up in droves. While the real world offers only 3 feasible layouts to race on due to safety, in iRacing, the inclusion of the oval and the lack of safety concerns gives it a stunning 9 versions drivers can choose from. The modern GP layout is of course the most well known, with its long history of hosting the Italian Grand Prix. But the oval and combined circuits allow those who thirst for more speed to satiate that craving with its insanely high banking. Indeed, incredible velocities are a staple of just about every version you can race here. Draft battles are not uncommon, no matter which car you're racing. But the inclusion of the chicanes makes using an outbraking maneuver a much more tricky way of overtaking. The circuit is notorious for drivers getting tangled up with each other while running side by side in these slow and cumbersome corners. In fact, one of the greatest dangers for drivers is the first few laps when the field is still clumped together and attempting to navigate them 2 and 3 wide. While there are other modern circuits with high-speed straights, the fact that Monza sits inside the Royal Park just north of Milan and is still tightly lined with trees heightens the sense of speed here. All in all, Monza is unmatched in its history, thrills, and great racing. Its significance in motorsports history and culture is sure to be unchallenged for years. You see just some of the sights around here at Monza, but these cars didn't necessarily race at this track, Adam, in the real world, but I'd say this is a good fit for them.
It is a good fit for them, and normally, Joe, while I would start talking about the track quite a bit here, we're going to shift things because the beginning of the season calls for something a little different. The Kamel community is tackling 2 challenges today, the 3.5 mile or 5.63 kilometer 9-turn Monza circuit with turns 1 and 2 removed for an even longer straight into the Curva Grande, and brand new cars. Well, okay, the chassis are the same, but iRacing has made some tweaks under the hood and given them some new rubber. And what was a surprise to the Kamel Kamel community, iRacing rolled out the new tire model version 7 for the Kamel cars this season, and it has made a huge difference. Both cars are more predictable, with varying levels of grip when you push the envelope, rather than having to memorize the point where the traction would break away with both cars. While both the Nissan GTP and Audi GTO still carry their signature traits, turbo lag-induced wheel spin off the corners, and a propensity for understeer through anything but the gentlest turn respectively, they also are far more predictable. This means that you can push these cars and feel when they're on the edge, and hard braking in both vehicles is far more reliable as well. While these cars didn't become easier to drive overnight and the Audi gearbox is still terrifying, the barrier to entry to this series was lowered a touch and the potential for excitement raised even more. I know we here at GSRC already believe this, but I think this has the potential of becoming the most exciting official series on the service this season, Joe.
Looking forward to watching what it's like on track. We'll get our first view of it today here. But let's look back before we look forward and take a glance at the championship, starting with the prototypes. Now, this was a stunning end to the season, more due to the domination that Fabian Gerber showed. Almost 2 whole wins worth of points ahead of second place at the end of the season. He came back and just destroyed everybody. In fact, the stats, if you look at them in terms of finishes, he had 10 top 5s compared to the next closest drivers were Mukanos and Houghton, each with 7 top 5s out of the 12 races in the season. There you can see Houghton finishing a little bit behind Mukanos. Laust Olsen and Martin Krejcirek rounded out the top 5. Laust and Martin really have been 2 that have continued to improve, and I expect maybe they should be competing for higher positions soon. Let's look at the GTOs as well, Adam.
Yeah, this one's looks closer than it felt for a lot of the drivers. Dennis Neidhart up there with 247 points took the win and took 9 wins on the 14-race season last season, so it was quite a dominant performance. Philip Lake, though, got 2 wins, but he still made 10 top 10s, which is what kept him within 37 points of the lead. Rob Olnick was quite a ways back in 3rd position with no wins, but still 7 top 5s, and Juko Lascala just a little bit back of him in 4th, just outside of the podium positions. Reed Miller, Mr. Consistency, had a couple of bad incidents in the last couple of races, so he dropped back to 5th.
Let's take a look at the race details for today's event. Now we can start looking forward as we are in round 1 out of 13. This is a 13-week season. For those who are just finding out about this, iRacing is having a bit of a super season here to try and get their schedule back in order. Now, it's a 40-minute race as always, and it is open setups. They have no fast repairs. That's going to be important in this series at a track like this, where any damage can surely slow you down by quite a margin. They also have some incident limits. They're going to get a penalty at 17 incidents, and then they will have a disqualification at 25. Hopefully we shouldn't see too much of that, even though there's a few places where it's easy to rack them up through the chicanes. Also, if you're watching today, since we have a pretty full field out here, if you don't see your favorite driver on screen, you can keep track of how they're doing by following along at gsrc.tv. We've got live time and in scoring there all race long as we now watch Krejcirek come to the line. His first lap looks like it's going to be good enough for 6, but Fabian Gerber picks up where he left off and is still up on the provisional pole. Lascala is currently holding the provisional pole down in the GTOs.
Yeah, awesome to see that. Someone that I'm not seeing in this session is Dennis Neidhart. So that will be interesting, because with Dennis's absence here in the GTOs, this will open up the door to other drivers. Lascala was very strong last season as he comes across for his 2nd lap. Philip Lake, as you saw, was also strong. And Ove Trangrade and Michael Houghton were making late season pushes as well in the GTOs. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes to the fore here with this new tire model and the new grip on track and a new season.
Pawlowski's first lap is good enough for 9th. It's a bit far down the order. We're still waiting for Warkup to set a time and Stefan Schlacker. This is Marcus Romer down in the GTOs. That's going to put him in 12th. His 2nd lap being just about 0.3 quicker. Interesting to note, Ben Lather, who's usually fast, is actually down in 10th in that class, and he's not going to be able to do a 2nd lap as he seems to have had some sort of issue.
Those of you who watch our bootleg racing series might have recognized the name that was on screen just a couple of moments ago. That was Justin Morton, one of our heavy hitters in the bootleg racing series, joining the Audi GTO for this opening race in the TDR machine. So it's awesome to see some drivers from a couple of our other series jump into this official series.
Actually raced over here first, I want to say, before he joined us in the bootleg series. But as you said, he joined us. And it looks like Stefan Schlocker's first time, only good enough for 12th. Ooh, he's another one that's going to have to work hard on that second row. Antti Lepisto, a 28.9. That's going to be good enough for the second row into third.
Yeah, and a lot of these drivers just struggling a little bit with trying to adapt to the new tires. They may be more predictable, but that doesn't mean that they're not different. And when you've been racing this series with these tires for the last 4 or 5 seasons, it could be really complicated to try to change all of your habits and develop new ones in a new racing feel for this service. We should mention that this race actually did split, so we are in 2 different sessions this race, and the way that works on points is that the second split gets half of the points that the first one does, and we'll talk about how that plays out next week.
And looks like Morton's has already got his 2 laps in, so we're going to turn the cameras to Jamie Hall in the number 12. He's in second, trying to take this pole away from Leskala. Let's see what he's got. He has to make up 3/10, which is a decent margin. And he's just shy by about a 10th.
Ooh, that was awesome to see. Jamie Hall putting in a really good time there. Stefan Schlocker coming around for what will be his final lap as well. He's not going to make it to the line, I don't think. Oh.
He cut it a little bit too close. He tends to do that most times, and I think he unfortunately flew too close to the sun. So let's go through our starting order for today with Fabian Gerber on the pole for the GTPs. Tobias Gerber, his brother, will be right next to him. How about that? A front row of Gerbers. Antti Lepisto starts in third with Matthias Hovdahl in fourth. Nick Mukanos, who finished second in the championship last season, will start all the way back in fifth, just ahead of Krejciri. Roman Pavlowski, P7 for him in qualifying, and Juan Micosta in eighth. Then you've got Alex Millward all the way down in ninth. Apparently struggled a little bit today, and Paulo Stella in P10. And the next screen, we've got Clayton McLeod starting 11th with Stephen Warkup P12. Stefan Schlocker did get 1 lap in, and that put him in 13th.
Juko Escala is going to start off on pole for the Audi GTOs. Alongside him is going to be Jamie Hall, who put in a lot of practice. And so did Michael Houghton in third place, starting off third place in the preseason week 13. Phil Lake's going to start off fourth with Ove Trangrade behind him in fifth place. Rob Olnick's going to start off sixth with Reed Miller in seventh. Daniel Sadra starting off in the eighth position. Chris Toms is going to start off in ninth with Ralph Zeipelt in 10th position. Ben Lafter is going to start off 11th with Alex Moss in 12th. Tanner McCullough rejoins the series, starting off in the 13th position, and so does Justin Morton, starting alongside him in 14th. Marcus Romer starts off in the 15th position, with Richard Spitzmuller starting off in 16th. Franco Scurry and Jim McGill round out the 18 cars in the Audi GTO field and the 31 cars on the track.
After we wait for the Porsche pace car to lead them away, we ask the question of who is able to adapt and who is not. We're definitely seeing some outliers here today at Monza. Granted, I almost wonder if this one won't really give us a good idea of how the season's going to go, Adam, because this is kind of a unique track in terms of what they typically run.
Yeah, and it's not supremely technical with the amount of straight that they have, especially in the Audi GTOs, and the amount of draft that they're going to get. Any mistakes that you make are going to be able to be rectified on the straight as long as you get some good straight line speed going. Interestingly enough, in the Audi GTOs, looks like Juko Lascala actually kind of stalled himself, so that caused a little bit of a backup. Hopefully nobody has too much damage. We're taking a look at the weather on track, though, and look at that track temperature, 116. That is not a cool track right now, Joe.
That's consistent with what we saw in the practice session before they came in here to this race session, as it was up to 120 when we were watching that before. So drivers hopefully should have at least a little bit of experience with that heat, but certainly going to make things a bit of a challenge and a bit slippery. So as we watch our GTO field come down towards Parabolica, Fabian Gerber is just about to that final corner. The Porsche pace car going to peel off, give him control of the field, but it's a very short ways to the line as they come out of that 180-degree turn. Pace car getting ready to leave them to their own methods here. There he goes. Green flag is out immediately, and Gerber is off. Got a very good start back there for Martin Krejcik. He manages to get around multiple cars with a jump up to 4th place as Gerber is putting himself well out of reach from Lepisto and Tobias Gerber as they come down towards the Curva Grande. Everybody's starting to reel things back in with the slipstream. Oh, and we already got a car way off. That looks like
a huge wreck.
As well as Warcup going into the wall. They're breaking down into the De La Roja chicane. It looks like we are good. Let's go back.
Oh, no. There's a giant pileup in the back of the GTO field. I believe that's Tanner McCullough that just went over. And, oh, no, that was Rob Oldick going across the track. There's a giant pileup in our first race this season.
Miller as well just sliced through and got tipped around. Phil Lake is still your leader up at the front. Jamie Hall is in second. Lescala, despite taking the pole, found himself a sitting duck, and he is a long ways back there in third.
Justin Morton, Daniel Sadro, Paul Stella, Stephen Warcup, and Tanner McCullough are our victims from those first round of incidents. But up front, it's Philip Lake, led by Jamie Hall. Jamie Hall in close enough, but back up to our GTPs.
Right now, the Gerbers are streaming away, and it's a battle for third between Mucanos and Lepisto, along with Juan Mi Costa. As they come down into Parabolica, it looks like to the outside, Lepisto trying to keep his momentum up. Goes for the over-under as Mucanos slides back in front of him, and now they pick up speed down the long front stretch.
And these GTPs don't have quite as much of the draft as the GTOs do, but remember that iRacing did update their side drafting parameters through this season, so you're going to see these cars next to each other run a little bit slower than they used to, and that can actually lead to more side-by-side battling between these guys as we see them straighten out for Curva Grande.
Like that's going to settle itself out. Meanwhile, we had a change of lead with Jamie Hall taking P1 away from Phil Lake. They continue to try and pull away from the number 9 of Lescala, and that will probably be important for them to work together, considering Yuko's speed.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to work together as we drop back for to Chris Toms in the 5th position. He's battling with Ben Lafter. Ooh, wow, Ben got way off track there going through the chicanes.
That was actually Trank right there that missed a shift and found himself off into the gravel. So he falls down to 7th place. Lafter gets promoted to 6th from that. Not the start that Ove wanted after taking a win earlier this morning in the Lotus 49s.
And up in the GTPs, we have a pass going on for the 3rd position. This is between Nick Papanos and Antti Lepisto. These two guys side by side as they head towards the Parabolica. This could get complicated. Anti's going to have to do some very, very touchy things on the throttle to try and get around the outside here. Looks like he's going to have the purchase and be able to do it here. Nick Papanos unable to get enough traction down on the inside to get by.
And from on board, Mucanos ahead to Lepisto. He's going to go to the inside, and then it's a drag race up into Curva Grande. Speed, it's 190 miles an hour before they have to slow down a little bit of contact. Lepisto is around after touched by Costa. I think everybody else behind is going to get through.
Yeah, this was a little bit of ghost contact, unfortunately, Joe. He was just trying to turn in, and it would have been fine. But unfortunately, the prediction algorithm just caught him in the wrong place. We're going to see it right here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, his little wiggle probably didn't help there. I certainly would be a little caught off guard by sudden contact in a fast corner like that myself, as we take a look at the lead once again with Hall and Lake. And I think Lescala is starting to catch up to them and bringing Rob Olenek with him. So it's becoming a 4-car fight for the lead.
Yeah, he definitely is, Joe. Lescala is starting to gain those positions back, gain that time back quite handily. He was more than a second and a half behind at this point on the track last lap, and here he is almost half a second behind these guys, and he's actually starting to pull away from Rob a little bit here. So remember, Leskala was our pole sitter, and by 3/10 no less, so he does have a fast delta around this track when he can get clear out.
So, as we look at 7th place now, 8th place rather, is Millward working on, I believe, Pawlowski.
That's correct. Pawlowski and Clayton McLeod's tucked in behind them, but look at Pawlowski. They're trying to power past Millward on the inside. This is that side draft modeling that they did where these cars just cannot separate from one another with the way that the aerodynamics work on these GTPs, and they're drafting their way up to Stefan Schlacker ahead of them as well.
Deep on the brakes from Millward, gets right back behind Schlacker. Not able to quite make it by to a bad exit, though, off of De La Rocha for Pawlowski. A lot of wheel spin there. McLeod takes a little bit of a peek, but nothing doing into the first Lesmo.
These GTPs are going to be doing a lot of that today, a lot of side-by-side battling as they're, if they could get some more separation, maybe the aerodynamics wouldn't be so effective, they'd be able to slingshot by, but as it is, if they keep running side-by-side like that, they're going to be glued together as they go through down the straights like that.
And there's a spin in front of them. That is Costa. The number 19 finds himself stuck at the side of the track. He's going to get without too much contact. He may have nosed it into the wall a little bit.
This is really easy to do. We saw a couple drivers do this in Formula One last season where they clip the inside of that apex there, get those left tires off the ground, and end up spinning towards the inside wall. Fortunately, it doesn't look like he has too much damage on that thing. I think he had some damage from the earlier incident that happened in the GTPs, but he'll keep going.
Down to 10th for him. Back in our GTO lead battle. Lake is ahead of Hall. Leskala giving watch, but not really tucking up behind them as close as you might expect. Let's see if this run down the front stretch does it. Oh, a big slide though for Lake as he goes wide coming through Parabolica, and Hall is going to be able to get to the inside of him.
Yeah, this is going to bring Leskala right back into the battle, and he's got double draft now. So unless these guys run side by side down the straight, Leskala might even be able to make it 3 wide here and make a pass for the lead. But look at these two drivers up at the front. They're really separating from one another and trying to block the whole track, and it works. Leskala has to lift before Curva Grande.
They all get back to single file through the Curva Grande. Another look to the inside though from Hall. Going to try and take it back as they break into De La Rocha, but decides better of it.
I can report that Reed Miller's damage from that earlier incident is too much. He now is unfortunately in the pits taking damage repairs. But look at this battle. It's a 4-way battle for the lead, and he'll only gain more cars if these guys continue to battle with each other down the straights. If they can manage to do some slingshots and maybe get a little bit of speed, they might be able to pull away from Ben Lafter behind them, because Ben actually has a drafting partner of Chris Thompson, 6th. But these top 4 guys, Phil Lake, Jamie Hall, Shuka Leskala, and Rob Olenek, are battling tooth and nail now.
Keep the cameras here, but I think the leaders are going to start catching.
Ooh, second in the GTPs, Joe. We have a pass going on. Nick Bacanos going to the inside here of Tobias Gerber. Nick Bacanos has been strong all last season, and he's showing just how strong he is today here at Monza. He's able to snake his way by Tobias Gerber. He's been working on this for about a lap and a half.
Yeah, I was keeping half an eye on that, and he reeled him in. Now he's got to make up 2.5 seconds up to Fabian Gerber. And behind them, that's Matthias Hovdal. That is for position. So a 3-way fight as we now ride looking over his shoulder.
As you can see, these GTPs are a little bit easier to catch. A little bit of a slip up like that would have been a spin last season, but Matthias Hovdal definitely pushing the car to its limits at this point with that turbo-induced wheel spin on the rear. But look at that, Nick McConnell's pulling away from Tobias Gerber here. Gerber looking like he's a little bit down on pace on the straights. Maybe took a little bit more of the downforce here.
It always amazes me how much view that wing, the wedge shape of this car blocks, and how low the driver is in the cockpit. You can see well, you can't see it because there's just nothing but a car in front of us right now, and all the reference points is a little bit of a slide is going to open the door once again, and Tobias Gerber already lost position at this point in the track last lap, but he's not going to quite lose it here, as it seems Hovdal can't get the speed.
Yeah, Hovdal couldn't get that rear end traction down. He was actually spinning the rear tires while going around the parabolic, and that's hard to do. But Hovdal now in the draft is able to drop out to the outside. But look at that, the speed kind of neutralizes as they get side by side. And now Hovdal's going to have to hold it on the inside. He can't quite do it. Tobias Gerber powering her on the outside. Are they still going to be side by side when they hit the brakes for the chicanes? Yes, they are. Hovdal late on the brakes. He's going to try and go around the outside, but nothing doing. Tobias Gerber cuts off that line.
Woo, and another big bit of wheel spin as Hovdal's got a bad case of thunderfoot here today. So he's going to have to try and regroup and get back up and see if he can solve that problem. Meanwhile, things are going to change once more for the lead in the GTOs as Lake gets ahead of Hall one more time. Leskala still back there. Let's see what he can do. And he managed to find an opening. They're going to be single file going in, and he's got a little bit of steam, but as they finally hit the braking here for Curva Grande, don't think that that's going to open the opportunity. They're starting to drop Rob Olenek bit by bit as well. That number 4 has got to start hustling if he wants to have a chance at the win.
Remember that Phil Lake and Jamie Hall are teammates on Dirty Torque, but they do not have team strategy that they play together. And nobody's decided on who's going to win or who's going to lead. But that being said, these two guys can absolutely manage the race from the front here like this. Notice how they've kept Juco Lascala behind themselves during all of these straightaways. So it's going to be interesting to see how Juco's going to try and get by these two.
Absolutely, as we ride on board now with Olenek looking ahead at the front trio. They break for Ascari. Phil Lake leading them in, just glancing those curves as he weaves back and forth through the 3 apexes. And everybody really looking very nice up here. Honestly, I'm a bit surprised at how orderly these 4 are. I probably shouldn't be, considering they're all being so experienced in this series.
Yeah, these guys are all very experienced. They know that it's not an endurance race. This is a 40-minute race, but we're only 12 minutes into it at this point. So there's a long way to go, and there's a lot of chances for people to make mistakes. So if you're Juco Lascala, I've seen him do this before with some of our other drivers when he's been chasing people for the lead. He'll just let them battle and just sit there behind them and wait for his opportunity to strike in the last 10 minutes.
All going to take the front, back away again. And that makes me wonder, too, if he's just sitting back there and not fighting as hard. It used to be that we talked about conserving your tires a little bit in these cars. Have you had enough experience to know that that's going to continue to be an issue with this new tire model?
I'll be honest, Joe, I don't think anyone's had the experience of doing these high speeds, like in traffic, since the new update. So it's going to be interesting to see how how the tires handle that with how much heat they build up under speed. So I don't think anybody knows how the tires are going to handle a 40-minute race here. So it'll be fascinating to see how much pressure they can handle and how much abuse they can handle.
Let's keep with this fight, but just an update on the GTP lead fight. Lucanos has cut it down to 1.7 seconds. He's been reeling in that number 2 machine. And we could actually have a fight for the win come the end of this race if he can keep this up. Meanwhile, as we ride on board with the Finn, Leskala still hounding both Hall and Lake.
Yeah, they're a little bit too far behind. It seems like Jamie Hall and Phil Lake are able to get through these corners a lot better, which gives them such a significant gap over Leskala by the time they get to the straightaways. Leskala's too far back to strike. He's going to have to remedy that before he can make any opportunity to try and strike on these guys.
Looks like they're going to swap around one more time. We had another change of position back in the GTPs, and that was Millward and Gerber. I think Tobias in that number 20 car, he's got some damage or something, because he's lost out to Mukanos, then Hovdal, now Millward. He's 5.8 seconds behind his brother Fabian. I don't know, this just seems weird that he qualified so well and has just been bleeding positions time after time.
Yeah, that's the fascinating bit, is how well he qualified, because normally I would say that he doesn't have, he has too much downforce on the machine. But if he qualified well, that can't be the case. So in which case, it's probably that he does have some undertrade damage that is affecting his speed.
Trying to hold on to the back of Millward. The next car back is Krejcik in 6th position. He's about 2 seconds behind. So it'll be a little bit, hopefully, before He gets caught by yet another. And another 0.3 have gone down between Fabian Gerber and Nick Mukanos. It's now 1.5.
We're going to see Nick Mukanos is making some serious inroads on Fabian Gerber, and this is not something we've come to expect here. Fabian has been very strong, but look at this. Nick Mukanos is getting caught in traffic here. This is probably what's been losing Gerber the time, is all of this traffic.
That's a fair point. Even though it's a long lap, you still have to deal with it, and especially if you catch them at those chicanes, just like Hovdal did as he sneaks by Richard Spitzmuller. So Nick Mukanos, coming off of 2 wins last season to Fabian Gerber's 4, is showing he is once again bringing the fight to the multi-time champion.
Yeah, and I think that his confidence was definitely boosted last season with those 2 wins, and he is going to be challenging for the lead as much as he possibly can this season. I'm very excited to see how Nick is going to tackle this season, especially up against, you know, some of the legends like Fabian Gerber. And if we see Justin Albrecht, he's always a challenge to beat as well.
Using the slipstream and a little bit of help from Marcus Romer to try and pick up some speed. Now he swings around the outside. This Fabian Gerber of our GTO drivers. There you can see same thing happening with Mukanos. Oh, but they're going to try and have to keep from being held up here into the De La Rosa chicane, and this unfortunately is a bad spot for Nick. Hovdal actually catches up to the back of him because of that. He is now half a second behind the number 17.
This is going to lose Nick 1 to 2 seconds. He's already lost 1 second already. And he's going to try and get by Jim McGill here. He's going to be able to do it, but that has lost him 1.5 seconds at least just in that exchange right there.
It's not over yet because I think it's thickening up as they get into the mid-pack here of the GTO field. Franco Scurry, the next one ahead of them, and you can see just how many they're having to weave through, as that was Zeipelt that they went by. Yeah, it is 3.2 seconds now between first and second place in the prototypes. But Gerber's catching a few more of them. I wonder if karma is going to come back for Nick Mukanos. Meanwhile, as we check in once more on the lead quartet, very little change other than Lake and Hall just swapping back and forth as La Scala watches, and Rob Olenek sits behind.
La Scala just has not been able to get through the Parabolica with the same speed that Phil and Jamie have, and he has been losing every opportunity to try and make it past these guys. Now, like you said, Joe, he might be saving his tires. He might not be pushing the car quite as hard as the 2 guys up front and hoping that that's going to make a difference. But around what's basically the closest thing that Kamel has to an oval, I'd expect that these tires are going to hold up for all these drivers, and Zuko's just going to have to do it on raw pace.
Could be sizing it up as well. Just kind of figuring out where he can get runs and what kind of speed he can get down into Ascari one more time. Car is bouncing over those curbs. Behind them, it is worth mentioning, Toms and Laughter have been working together as well. They are in 5th and 6th. I think they've been trying to catch up to the top 4, but it doesn't seem to be working because they're already more than 10 seconds behind.
Well, from what I've been watching, Joe, Toms and Laughter have not really been working together. They've been battling side by side quite a bit with each other, especially on the straights, and that's going to slow them down a lot. We're going to watch as they come off of the Parabolica here. They're dealing with Flap Trapper. I believe that is Fabian Gerber who's going to go around them. Fabian actually lost about 1.5 seconds to Nick Mukanos just in some traffic that he had to deal with there. But as you can see, I don't know if they're playing nice with each other right now, and that could be really detrimental to them. They lost 1 second to the leaders just in the last half lap.
Okay, here's where it gets interesting, because this is the first time that Gerber is going to come upon our leaders in the GTOs, the top 4, and he'll be probably hitting them next lap, so just about exactly halfway. So 2 things that'll come up here, Adam. 1, how is this potentially going to break up this fight between these top 4? Because we've seen that before when the prototypes come through. 2, does this mean that they could play a part in the win because they'll be approached by the leaders right at the very end of the race?
Yeah, it's definitely going to affect them for sure, and it's definitely going to affect this battle for second place between Nick Makanos and Matthias Hovdal, because Hovdal is clinging to the back of Makanos for all he is worth, and he's also been putting a lot of stress on those rear tires. He has been loose off of every corner, and frankly, it's something that I have never seen in the GTP, just how loose Hovdal has been off of these turns and managing to save it. But if Makanos and Hovdal get held up one more time, Hovdal's going to pounce.
Certainly don't doubt that. Both of them still running very close together as we saw our leader coming around Parabolica. Thought he would catch up to them by now, but he's still a couple seconds back. So he might not catch them on the second time around. We've seen glances of those top four continuing to swap between Hall and Lake.
Hovdal going on Makanos here. He got a good exit off the Parabolica for the first time today. He's going to be able to try and make this pass work on the inside of the corner. Here we go through Curva Grande, and he clips the apex just a little bit. That pushes him out wide. This might give an opportunity for Makanos to try and come back around the outside.
He thinks about it. He's deep on the brakes, but once they hit the apex, he decides it's not worth it and falls in behind Hovdal.
Here's the traffic you talked about for Fabian Gerber up ahead of them. Fabian's now caught up to these four leaders. I think he'll catch them at an okay time. He is going to lose some time to Matthias Hovdal now in second place, but can he get by all of them by the time they get to the next chicane?
I don't think he will. He's going to get one. He's going to get two, but this is going to be very tight on whether or not he can sneak by the top two here. No, he can't.
This is going to break up the battle for the lead in the GTOs as the GTPs are slower through this sector. So that pushes Juca La Scala back about half a second here. Now Fabian is going to be able to get by these two. But look at what's happening in the background. Hovdal and Makanos struggling with these guys.
Fabian Gerber is now fully by the top four, battling for the lead in the GTO classes. Both Hovdal and Makanos are still stuck amongst them.
Oh, big wreck!
Oh, no,
Alex Millward and Ben Laughter.
Oh. Okay, what exactly happened here? Because this happens out of... Oh, he blew his engine. Millward blows his engine. And did those behind just not know?
I think Ben was trying to... He was trying to shake the car on his tail, and he goes to the inside expecting the GTP to be moving, and he's not.
Yeah, that other car with them, that is Chris Toms.
I think he was looking in his mirrors, Joe. He didn't expect a car to be there.
Either that or he expected him to be faster. So, yeah, that was a bizarre incident. And credit to Millward, he was doing the right thing. He was off the racing line. He was out of the way. He blew his engine, and he had no power. It's just everybody else read the situation wrong, it seems. So as we watch our top two, now about a half a second ahead of Leskola, I think he might still be able to get back in this. In fact, looks like Lake and Hall maybe have separated a bit themselves.
They have separated a bit, and which is interesting because they were together through all that GTP craziness. But now this actually gives opportunity for Juca La Scala to try and get back up to them because of how separated they are. That's Tobias Gerber, you see, trying to go around the outside of the Parabolica and actually kind of outbraking himself there. So this is going to be a little bit complicated for Tobias. He's able to get by, and he should be able to get by the other two by the time they get to Curva Grande.
So as he approaches Tobias, is he going to find a too-wide situation, though? Yes, he is, because here goes Jamie Hall down to the inside, so he's got to stay patient for a moment. That costs him a lot of time. Here comes Martin Krejcik with a head of steam. He might be able to get by. Defensive move coming up into De La Roja, and Tobias Gerber barely holds him off. Oh, or does he? No, he cuts the course. He overshoots the corner. He's going to get a slowdown penalty. He should, at least.
This is going to hold up the battle for the lead of the GTOs as well, because Krejcik had to back off to make sure he didn't hit Tobias. Tobias is going to be able to hang on to it because Krejcik had to slow down so much to avoid hitting him.
Wow, so that was a lucky break for the number 20 to not lose fourth position. Boy, this has been a bit of a rough race. I'm looking down the field, and We've had a number of DNFs, at least half a dozen, possibly more.
Yeah, we are very close to 10. Well, it's about it's about 7 DNFs right now, and 10 cars that have had significant damage that are more or less out of the standings at this point. But look at this, Tobias is way down on straight line speed, like you were talking, Joe.
Yeah, some curb or something seems to have messed up his pristine aerodynamics. Krejcik coming on the front stretch is going to have another go at things.
This will be easy.
Oh, wow. Look at him gain. Krejcik 190 versus 182. 183 miles per hour for Tobias Gerber. Yeah, he is down on top speed for sure.
Yeah, the aerodynamics and the engine top out the GTP speed at around 190, like you said. But Tobias just took so long to get there. He never got there by the time they hit parabolic. He only got to 187. So Tobias, like you said, down on that straight line speed right now.
The GTO leaders are being interrupted yet again. Pawlowski and Schlacher had to get through, and that checked up Jamie Hall big time. Lake, Leskala, and Olenek are now right back where they were earlier in this race.
This is what I love about watching GTOs around a track like this, is that they just kind of clump up together like this. Unfortunately, we had that giant incident at the beginning of the race, but I would have expected to see most of the field up in this battle had that incident not happened. But look at the speed that Jamie and Phil can get out of the corners. They have definitely practiced on this new tire model, and they are getting the most out of it as far as the speed is concerned with exiting the corners. This is something that I discovered when I was working on one of the laps for our track guide, for our track guides that we do here at GSRC, and that is that you have to sit in the corner a lot longer than you used to have to with these Audi GTOs. But if you can get the car straight launching out of the corner, you'll actually gain more speed than if you try and carry speed through the corner.
One thing that impresses me.
The lead in the GTPs may be about to change. Fabian Gerber is being caught by Matthias Hovdahl.
Well, when did this happen? It's a three-way fight. Hovdahl and Mucanos are there. Well, it was until now, because Mucanos just made a mistake out of De La Rosa, costs himself almost a full second. So it's back to a 1v1. Gerber and Hovdahl with about 13 minutes left to go.
Gerber's last lap was a 131.1, whereas Hovdahl's last lap was a 130.9. And their fastest laps, I mean, Fabian's fastest lap is way faster than Hovdahl's, but at this point in the race, Hovdahl is getting really strong.
Boy, he is sawing away at the wheel, though. He's trying to get everything out of it, and it almost looks like he's overdriving, because look at the gap that pulled just from that one chicane. It's back up to half a second between the 2 and the 14.
I mean, Joe, yeah, I agree with you, but at the same time, he's been doing that all race. And so at some point, I gotta say it, this guy seems to understand something we don't about this car. He has it literally on the edge of traction all the way around. And while he is losing time out of the corners, look at how much he gains on the straights.
He's really slipstreamed it. And you're right. He's pulling it right back in. So as much as we're seeing him just go back and forth with his hands, let's watch here through the Curva Grande. See if he has any correction.
194 down the straight. And here he goes to the inside.
No defense, though, from Fabian. He's going to stay to the racing line. He feels confident in the braking. Hovdahl managed to get something done here. This is not a driver we expected to be a challenge for Fabian Gerber, but clearly we need to pay attention.
Yeah, Hovdahl seems to have found something here on this new tire model, has found some way to maximize its performance in a way that we would not have expected with the GTPs. It's extremely risky, but aren't those some of the best drivers in the world, the ones who can ride literally on the edge of traction? And we're seeing that with Hovdahl today.
Just a dance with the car. Flirting with disaster constantly. That one looked a little bit cleaner than last lap around, and it certainly paid more dividends, as it's 0.3 of a second instead of 0.6 this time. They come down to Parabolica. If he gets a good exit, I think he might be past him by the braking zone this time.
He's definitely loose in, and he carries a lot of side slip out. This is fascinating to watch a GTP on the edge that much, but he got a good exit. Like you said, he'll definitely be challenging Gerber into the Parabolica.
I've never seen someone counter steer this much from inside the cockpit. And here we go. He's got much more speed. He's got the inside this time, but it's going to switch back to the outside when they get to De La Roja. He tries to cover him off. Look at that. Swings all the way off to the left. He's got a nose ahead. Is this going to be enough? He holds with him. Down into De La Roja, a new leader, and it is going to be Matthias Hovdal.
What an amazing pass, a pass on pace. This is something that we've seen so rarely in the GTPs, where two people with such close pace are able to battle with one another. But look at him take off into the distance a little bit there. Already a half a second gap. Let's see if he can pull more.
Remember, 10 minutes left in this race, though, so it's a quarter of the way.
We've had a wreck between Stefan Schlacker and Jakob Pawlowski. Those two have been battling side by side all race, and they finally came together in one of the chicanes.
Yep, looks like it was just a fight for track space, and unfortunately down into this chicane. Can't really go side by side that easily. Oh. That's Pawlowski in the green, and the purple is Stefan Schlacker. They both get the cars going. Pawlowski looks to be a little bit more injured, though, as he's limping back. Meanwhile, our leaders have now hit traffic in the GTPs. They're getting by Jim McGill, and then up next is Justin Morton. This might be good for Hovdal if he can pull a little bit better of a slipstream.
So as we watch them go through the parabolic, I want to update you on the lead in the GTOs. It has separated significantly. Zhuka Lascala and Rob Olenek had a little bit of trouble with traffic themselves. They're now 2.5 seconds behind the leading pair of Phil Lake and Jamie Hall. So unfortunately, their challenge for the lead looks like it might be over here. Look how close this is getting here.
Yeah, that was a small mistake from Hovdal into De La Roja. Gerber wasn't able to pull alongside him in the same way that Matthias did with Fabian, but it checked them up because here comes Mukanos. He is now back in the fray. They've got a huge gap back to fourth. Krejcik a whole 14 seconds behind, so they are free to do as they please in this fight.
Joe, I think Gerber must have clipped a curb at some point or something, because this is not the kind of pace we would have expected from him, especially because he pulled away so far at the beginning of this race. But that being said, Mukanos was able to catch Gerber. Hovdal was able to catch Gerber. So I'm just fascinated with how this GTP race is turning out. Now, they have some lap traffic from their own class. This is Antti Lepisto up ahead of them. And then they have Richard Spitzmacher, who they're going to have to pass in the GTOs as well on this straight.
I did watch the speed last time in the slipstream. Gerber did get up to 194, which is what we saw Hovdal doing. So I don't know if he does have damage. Meanwhile, are they going to go 3 wide? Here we go. And they're going to be able to sneak through just barely. Hovdal trying to break that slipstream, but here comes Gerber once again.
Oh boy.
He's closer this time. Holds off to the left side. Oh, and more traffic up ahead of him. That's Franco Scurry. They're too wide as they approach these lapped cars. Still side by side into the corner, but Hovdal fends him off. Contact as Mukanos turns Gerber.
This will end the lead battle.
Oh. Just disappointment for Nick and Fabian, but Hovdal is loving this. What was going to be a very hard fight to the end, most likely, has become basically a free run to the checkers.
And Nick was going to try and do the over-under on Fabian, but Fabian just trying to hold on to traction there. Nick Mukanos is going to let Fabian Gerber go back by, and they're going to battle for second now. But a gentleman move from Nick not to run away with that.
That gives us the chance to look back at third in the GTOs. This is between Leskala and Olenek, who, as you mentioned earlier, has dropped off of Hall and Lake. What was a 4-car fight pretty much this whole time has split into pairs.
And look at this. Leskala clipping those curbs a little bit hard. Rob Olenek trying to get the over-under there, but he hit the inside curb on the second part of the chicane as well. So Rob's been strong all day, but unfortunately, Zhuka just seems to have a little bit of better racecraft at Monza here, and that's something that you can only learn by racing this track a lot. And so I'm not sure what their experience levels are like with this track, but Rob Olenek looks very strong in the draft of Leskala. Is he going to try and make a pass here? No, he thinks better of it.
Be approached by our leader, or no, excuse me, this is Costa, just behind them. I think we'll catch him at a good spot, depending on what his top speed is. We'll get Olenek. He's going to be able to get by Leskala. Nico kind of holding off the far left side a little. Maybe a defense. Does he feel vulnerable in that number 9? He came back to the racing line eventually. They come to the pit straight one more time. 5 minutes left to go. This is not over.
Yeah, these two are definitely going to battle this out. Rob Olenek looking like he has a great draft going on right now, but is he going to be able to make it past by the time they get to the Curva Grande? He goes to the inside and is starting to pull on Leskala. He's going to drop in front of him here. Let's see whether Leskala swaps him over. He doesn't. Leskala actually brakes a little bit early for the Curva Grande. The Audis do have to brake for it as their four-wheel drive likes to push them off track around this corner if you're not careful. Leskala carrying a lot of speed through, but he thinks better of the challenge.
To attempt it here. He knows he's going to get more opportunities. We've got Ove Trangerade in pit lane, and I'm not sure why.
This may be fuel related, Joe. I don't see any damage on him.
Yeah, you might be right, because that's a very strange thing for him to come in this late. Maybe he was trying to save it up until now, but it'll be costly because he was within, I believe, the top 5 and is now falling backwards. For those wondering, Hovdal is about 13 seconds ahead of Fabian Gerber. Gerber's not been able to shake Mukano. He's put himself a little bit of safety room between them.
We're taking a look at the P7 battle in GTO. Marcus Romer and Franco Scurry. And Scurry just came through the chicanes not very well. He actually ends up with Romer pulling a gap a little bit there, but Franco has been having a rough race. He was involved in that first lap incident coming out of the Curva Grande, and he's now got front left damage, and he's just been falling back throughout the day. He was up to as far as P5 before the damage started to really affect him, and now he's starting to fall back a little bit here.
The sad news for our Italian fans is he's the only Italian in this race, although he is looking at least at a top 10 and a point scoring position today, as we again come back to our 2 leaders. Lake holding behind Hall. I have to imagine both of them are already thinking about the last lap. Both of them know the game here, so are we going to see some after you, sir moments coming up?
Definitely, and one of the things about this track is that you think that, like, oh, you know, the start-finish straight's going to be, you know, halfway down the straight, but no, the start-finish line is not halfway down the straight. It's pretty much right after you exit Parabolica, and that seems to be a tradition with the European tracks, and it's one of the things that drivers have expressed frustration with in the past. Look at this! Philip Lake trying to go around the outside, going into Ascari. That's a little bit risky.
They backed out of it, though, and I think that, again, it was intentional. I think he saw the opportunity but knew it was better to be in second so that he can take an easy pass later on. Where is our leader? Because we've got 2.5 minutes left. Hovdal's coming into Ascari himself as we watch these two. So it's not going to be white flag this time by.
It'll be white flag next time by, and I don't think Hovdal will catch these guys by the time he finishes. I'll keep my eye on that, though. But Phil Lake was testing something there, because that was the start-finish straight line that they just passed, and Phil Lake would not have been able to make it by. So whoever's leading out of the Parabolica will win this race, providing they're not side-by-side.
And this is the shift. So as they come down into Curva Grande, Lake decides he wants the lead now. They're going to battle side by side as Hall comes back around the outside into De La Roja. Both of them blowing the cars up, down into the first apex, and an over-under potentially because Lake was deep into the corner, and Hall manages to get the inside into the first Lesmo, back up to the lead for the number 12.
That four-wheel drive just powering out of there, even when two of the tires didn't have grip. The front right and the back left didn't have grip, but he was just able to power it out with the other two. And here comes Phil Lake back again.
Meanwhile, the battle for second is starting to come back as Fabian Gerber and Nick.
Oh no!
To the wall. Oh, with about a lap and a half to go.
That's major damage.
Raytrick is easily going to get by. Tobias Gerber might catch him depending on how bad that damage is.
Oh, he just got a little loose.
Yeah. Car not handling well and tried to goose it, and suddenly into the wall it goes. Meanwhile, Hovdal taking the white flag right now, and you're right, he's a little bit too far back from Lake and Hall, who are just coming around. So I think they are 2 laps to go here.
I'm actually not sure about that, Joe. He made up 10 seconds on that lap alone, and they're only 7 seconds ahead of him. So these guys have to do that math as well, especially Rob Olnick and Shuko Lascala. They're on their final lap because they're about to get passed by Hovdal right here.
Looking down into De La Roja. Lake not going to try it. He stays behind Hall. Boy, this is a tough one. I don't know how you try and assess this as a driver other than maybe just try and be ahead.
You have to. You have to try and be ahead as you come through the Parabolica. Hovdal now 4 seconds behind. He's definitely going to catch them by the time they finish this lap. It just depends on whether Hovdal decides to stay behind them, but because he has the time back to Pawlowski, that's about 7 seconds. So Philip Lake and Jamie Hall, they're going to have to duke it out here.
To the outside, Lake is going to try and outbrake him into a Scari. He's holding it this time, and he does it the long way around. It's not over yet, though. Here comes Hovdal just behind them. Is he going to catch them in time, or will they get another lap to try and sort this out? Defends to the inside. Phil Lake seems to think this might be it. Seems to want the lead over Jamie Hall, but Jamie Hall is deep down into Parabolica. Over under here for them. Are they going to get past? Because that's Hovdal. They're actually banging doors as they come to the line.
No, they're not. It's another lap for them.
And it's going to be a side-by-side race as the win goes to Matthias Hovdal. The number 14 is our victor in the GTP class. Jamie Hall and Phil Lake will have the entire track to themselves on this last lap.
These two guys will be the last ones racing by the time they get back to the start-finish line. Oh no, Phil Lake tries to go to the inside. He clips the apex, and that allows Jamie Hall to get by. Phil's going to have to claw back on about a third of a second to try and make it up to him.
It's getting rough out there. Elbows out for these two teammates, and Jamie Hall leads as they come through De La Roja. Phil Lake has to do it the hard way down into a Scari, so I wouldn't put it past him to try it again. As they come out of the first Lesmo, he sets him up. He looks for the entry. Can he get the launch that he needs off of here? It looks strong. Both of them now picking up speed, 130 miles an hour, 140. He's got the slipstream. He's reeling him in. He covers off at first, but Hall comes back to the racing lane. Now he lets him have the inside. Does he think he can hold him off from the hard way? They're side by side into a Scari. As they come through the corner, he's looking for the launch, and a much better run for the number 12 is going to put him ahead unless Phil Lake has a monster dive into Parabolica. I think Jamie Hall has this one. They approach the final corner, and the number 12 has a few car lengths. He's smooth into it. All he has to do is not miss the shift out of it. Jamie Hall is going to win over his teammate Phil Lake here at Monza for round 1 in the Kamel GT series.
What a finish from those two.
Unbelievable. Just incredible that it came down to that. Let's take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel as we try to catch our breath. You can see the damage on the cars from the side-by-side racing. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Don't go away because we have all the upcoming races here on GSRC on your screen. Welcome back to Monza. We saw the first round of the new season here in the Kamel GT series, and it was Matthias Hovdal who took the victory in the prototypes, nearly robbing us of an extra lap for the GTOs. We'll go over that in a second. Very few finishers here in the prototypes. Fabian Gerber wound up in second, just didn't seem to have the speed at the end of the race. And Martin Krajcik with a podium. From 6 on the grid. Nice run for him. Tobias Gerber, mysterious damage or some sort of lack of pace that cost him a lot of spots, and he gained them back after other drivers had trouble. Stefan Schlacker wound up with a top 5 from 13th. He admitted before the race he tends to lack pace here, but I'd say his cleanliness paid off in the end. Nick Mukanos, unfortunately, a late race error gave him damage. He slipped down to 6th, and Clayton McLeod finished in at 7th behind him. Roman Pawlowski was the first driver a lap down in 8th, and then Antti Lepisto finished 9th in the prototypes.
For those of you wondering, Jamie Hall led the last 2 laps, so he didn't steal a win away from Phil Lake because of that extra lap, but Jamie taking the win here in the GTOs, with Phil Lake coming up just short as they came through Ascari. Rob Olenek finishes coming home in 3rd place, just 1/10 up ahead of Juko Lascala as they came off the final corner. Chris Toms is going to come home in 5th place, a great finish for him considering everything that happened in front of him. Alex Moss coming home in 6th, with Marcus Romer coming home in 7th position. Franco Scurry unfortunately just falling off of him because of the damage, coming home in 8th, and Richard Spitzmuller coming home in the 9th spot. Jim McGill's going to come home 10th, and then Ralph Zeipelt is going to come home in 11th. The rest of your racers had some significant damage. Juan Micosta, Ove Trankerid, Justin Morton, Daniel Sadro, Alex Millward in the GTP, then Ben Laughter, Reed Miller, Tanner McCullough, Michael Houghton, Stephen Warkup, and Paulo Stella.
Joined by our winner, Matthias Hovdal, here in the booth. And Matthias, wow, what a win. Tell us a little bit about the setup on your car, though, because we were both impressed at your speed catching up to Fabian, because not many can do that, but also, boy, that car seemed loose when we rode on board with you.
Yeah, so that's one of the things about the new tires, I guess. With the old tires, you could really only drive it up to the limit, and if you went past it, the tires would just not work at all. But the way it is now, you can actually go a little bit over the limit and just really dance on the edge and still go fast. So, yeah, it was pretty wild, but it was a lot of fun.
Fun to watch. Before Fabian and Nick came together, were you worried about it coming to the last lap with the slipstream around here?
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit of a double-edged sword since there's a lot of dirty air through the twisty sections. But yeah, if Fabian had been right behind me coming on to the last lap, I think I would be in trouble.
Now, give me, but we're curious, where do you hail from? Because I see you're from Club Scandinavia, but I have to say, I did not expect what sounds like a very perfect American accent to me.
I am actually Norwegian, but I lived a couple of years in Michigan when I was a kid, so that's where I picked it up.
Interesting. Well, fascinating background, and I have to say that you've given us a great start to the season. Congratulations on the win. Hopefully we'll get to talk to you some more.
Yeah, thanks.
So Matthias Hovdal, our winner here in the prototypes, and sounds like we've got Phil Lake, our second place finisher, ready to talk to Adam.
Yeah, Phil, I mean, I'm sure coming out of the final corner, the second to last lap, you were expecting that to be the final one, expecting Hovdal to go by, but you were given another shot. Talk me through those final couple laps battling with Jamie.
Yeah, that was awesome. Where to start? Yeah, basically we had this exact same race yesterday, and it came down to the wire, and today was pretty much the same thing. So I was keeping an eye on the time remaining and keeping an eye on the lead Nissan, because we had the same situation yesterday where if we weren't sure if we were going to get a really quick white flag checker situation where we get past and it's the end of the race. So I wanted to make sure I was in front of Jamie for that lap, and then Hovdal decided not to pass us. So I crossed the line first on that lap, and then we had one more And I made a little mistake in Ascari. I think I maybe shouldn't have gone for that move there. Should have waited for the last corner, but that's how it went down yesterday. So I was kind of trying to mix it up a bit. But it's always great fun racing with Jamie, and it was an awesome race.
Yeah, the two of you were very strong, and also a very strong start for both of you, with Juco Lascala looking like he got off the line not so great. Looks like he came a little bit short on one of the shifts there. But this race very much feels a little bit like, you know, a Daytona 500 with the amount of drafting that you guys do. Talk to me about your strategy, and especially fuel strategy, because I know that Jamie was a little short.
Yeah, we were both pretty close. I ran out on the cool down lap as well. We didn't anticipate having to do the extra lap. Yeah, we had fuel through the week. We made sure we had enough fuel to run the entire race in the lead for 25 laps. So we were okay there, but then 26 laps, it did get a little bit close. We were swapping positions through the most sort of the middle part of the race, because there's really no point getting into a big battle until the last kind of 5 laps or so.
Well, Phil, it's still a great start to the season, even if it is just a second place. And we look forward to seeing you throughout the rest of the season. Since this is your first time up with us this season, is there anyone you want to thank today?
I'll thank you guys and all the Dirty Talk guys for working hard on the set this week.
All right, Phil. Well, thanks for talking to us, and we look forward to seeing you next round.
Yeah, see you next week.
That was Phil Lake, our second place finisher in the GTOs, and Joe is up with GTP second place, Fabian Gerber.
Fabian, but there was some debate in here on if you had any sort of damage or if that was just raw pace. So why don't you clear the story up for us? Did Matthias just run you down out of skill?
It's a bit. It's not that easy. I was at good speed at the beginning of the race, and then I had a couple of misshifts. Something changed, I guess, in the gearing with the new update. So I had trouble sometimes getting the gear in, but that sorted out for some reason, I don't know. There I lost some time, and as soon as you have someone in your draft, no matter what, not no matter, but he looks faster. The one behind looks faster than the one in front at Monza. And it was reversed when you overtook me. So it would have been a great battle to the end, because I could also manage my tires better when I was behind Matthias and not in front of him.
You mentioned the tires because we were closely watching to see how the cars handle. Hobdall was doing a lot of counter steering, if we're honest, with his setup. Do you find it's much easier to try and catch those slides with the new tire? How are your feelings about it?
Yeah, it's hard to say. It seems easier to drive the car, which is some kind of disadvantage for me, because people who don't know it very much or aren't very experienced with it, they can push it more than someone who's experienced in relation, if you know what I mean. So it's a learning curve for me, I guess, to push it harder the car than I used to, or just behave a bit different. And I got really heavy understeer today, which sort of worries me, but I don't know why. It's just, as soon as I was behind Matthias, it was all okay, because I probably could cool the tires a bit. But in front, it was horrible. I really had the worst understeer I ever had at the Nissan.
We'll have to make note of up here as well. Next round is going to be very different because we're heading over to Lime Rock. Are you looking forward to that, or is that going to groan out of you?
No, Lime Rock is usually fun. It just depends on how traffic behaves. But I had wins there. I had bad races there. Anything can happen at Lime Rock. It's fun. I like the track itself. It can get too crowded, of course, but we'll see. I'm looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it as well. Congratulations on a second place, Fabian.
Thank you very much.
That was Fabian Gerber in the number 2. I believe Adam is getting ready to talk to Stefan Schlacker, who made good on his lack of pace just by keeping it together.
Yeah, Stefan, you were witness to quite a few crazy incidents today. One on the first lap, and also one between you and Roman Pawlowski. Want to talk us through both of those?
Sure. The first lap incident, yeah, I don't know how I was able to actually avoid that. I kind of thought that some people will forget about the aero wash on the first lap, and sure enough, some people did, and just tried to keep it to the inside, keep out of everybody's way, and yeah, some actually was able to do that. Then I also witnessed the once again the rocket launch of iRacing in the form of Alex Milward over the bridge at the backstretch into Parabolica. Somehow avoided that wreck just by a hair. And the thing with Roman, yeah, we have been fighting a few times already into that chicane, and I don't know if you were able to catch that a few times already. But yeah, he was always able to get back on me on the second apex, and I was able to keep the inside there as well. And so I thought, hey, I hope he's also gonna give me some room. And on his side, we already spoke about it. He thought that I'm going to give up that position. So it was just an incident of two people thinking two different things and then sadly coming together. But I'm honestly extremely surprised that I was able to get up to 5th place. And I kind of want to give that position a little bit to Roman because that was an extremely awesome fight.
Yeah, it was a great fight to witness as well. And Stefan, fantastic finish coming from 13th to 5th. And we look forward to seeing you next round.
Yeah, most definitely. Will be awesome.
All right, that was Stefan Schlacker, our 5th place finisher. And Joe has caught up with Clayton McLeod, who finished in 7th place in the GTPs.
Yes, and Clayton was one that got a front row view of the incident at the start that seemed to be a bit of controversy after the race. Clayton, from your perspective, what happened there going into Curva Grande?
Well, from my point of view, I really just seen the car coming over my hood. watching it after, I could see that there was one car way out wide, and then the other two were just kind of reacting to that, and then one of them ended up on my car. So my top speed was down the rest of the race, and I was just trying to survive. I don't know if that's down to people trying to get to grips with the new tire or what, but it was unfortunate anyway.
Yeah, I know you are a long-time runner in this car. So what are your thoughts now that they've slapped some new rubber on there? Are you a fan, or is it kind of mixed feelings?
I was kind of hoping to get some more data to examine from today, but with my car being damaged, that's out the window now. But to me, it seems like it's a little better in some important ways. Like was mentioned, it's a little bit easier to catch once you've gone over the limit. You're not guaranteed to go around now and slam into the wall. It's a little more forgiving, but there's also going to be some learning here as to how to really handle the tire.
Yeah, I can understand that. Always going to have that learning curve. But thanks for coming and talking to us, Clayton. I'm sorry it didn't wind up as good of a finish as you hoped, but bodes well if you can manage a 7th, even with a damaged car.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's good to have you guys back as usual, and hope to see you every week here.
Awesome stuff. Well, we hope to see you as well. That was Clayton McLeod, P7, here today at the Checkered Flag. That's going to wrap up our interviews. Talked to a lot of Nissan drivers. We'll have to get some more GTOs in to talk about that new tire. But in the meantime, we want to thank the Kamel GT series for bringing us back for another season of coverage. But also a big thank you goes out to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcast. You can see listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, Adam, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We've also got social media where our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook, Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram, GSRC_Graham. If you'd like to support us, check out our merchandise store, linked in the description below, gsrc.storenv.com if you want to type it out yourself. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you'll notice that the subscribe button is big and red. Click that so that you don't miss a moment here on the GSRC. As we mentioned, the next race coming up next week is going to be at Lime Rock, and that'll be Saturday, June 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar, including the Jeddah Rally Cross Charity Cup coming up in just a couple hours. Make sure and check that out at Sonoma. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.